my knee because I put weight on it. Ow. EDS things. Woo. Okay. So that was a happy intro for a not happy rain video. Okay, listen, I was going to stream this, but it turns out my Wi-Fi at my university is very, very poor. So I just decided to record this and then put it on YouTube later. So we'll see how this goes. Yeah. So the neurotypicals are at it again. Okay. How to start this? For those of y'all who have not been aware, there was this really cute trend where this one dude made a violin cover to Electric Love. Gorgeous, harmonies on point. Everything amazing, right? So autistic people, we tend to really like that shit. Pardon my language. But people would react to this video and show their happy stems. It was absolutely adorable. There's this one individual, I'm not sure their pronouns, but they had like clown-esque makeup on and they were the one who really started the trend. And I love them because one of my happy stems is very similar to theirs, which is kind of going like this, and it's really good, it's really good. So they started this trend, and, you know, it was cute, you know? And then this one individual made a video to it, and everyone said, "This looks really forced and over-exaggerated. I call cap." Because this individual, they do use they, them pronouns. I remember that much because everyone's been misgendering them, which is not cool, dude. But this individual is self-diagnosed. So the neurotypicals took that to mean, you are faking it for attention. Of course you are. You shaved head, neo-pronouns, snowflake, even though they, them isn't neo-pronouns, but that's not the main point of this video. So, I just want to talk about this because now, everyone's saying that this person is fake, that they faked it, I don't know, for attention or something, and as a result, every single, person with over like 5,000 likes under this audio that's autistic and reacting, everyone's saying, self-diagnosed, you're fake as hell, you're clearly not autistic, we can tell that you're faking it, this is so forced, I call cap, all of these horrible, horrible things to autistic people. They even attack the creator of the trend, who's professionally diagnosed, not that that matters, but we'll get into that later. And it was just... And now they're going on to just videos of people stimming in general and calling it fake. All because this one person is self-diagnosed. They're calling everyone who acts like that fake. And there's tons of videos under the sound where it's like, I'm listening to this audio and I have autism, or this audio makes my autism happy. And then they are mocking neurodivergent behaviors. They'll do the Fortnite dance, which really lets you know the intelligence of these fools. And then they'll just like, it's actually so bad. They either mock autistic stems or they do a joke thing, like the Macarena or something, and they say that it's fine because they're mocking the faker. Okay, let's break this down. I'm really upset because these are all neurotypicals or Uncle Tom Aspie young boys. If you don't know what an Uncle Tom Aspie is, it's a slang term for when an autistic person, they tend to be men who are able to integrate into neurotypical society. what other people would call high functioning. We don't like functioning labels though, hence the quotation marks. But these are the men who think that they are better than other autistic people because they can mask their autistic traits, they force themselves to stop stimming, or they don't stim the same way that other people do, so they call everyone else a fake. I'm pretty sure one of these duetted the individual who was self-diagnosed. He said an actual person with autism reacted to the sound and did nothing, which is wrong because it's a spectrum, dumbass. But that kind of started this whole train. But anyway, the people who are, it's mostly like neurotypical boys who are 13 to 16 who don't understand what autism is, and they're calling everyone fake, which really, really annoys me, because if they spent any amount of time in the autistic community, they would understand how most of us feel about self-diagnosis. Because here's the thing, if you are assigned female at birth, it is very, very, very hard to get a diagnosis, because medical professionals will literally discriminate against AFAB people because they don't think they can be autistic. That's just how it works. I was luckily diagnosed very, very young because my mother has experience with disabled children, so she knew that I was on the spectrum and like fought for my diagnosis. But there's a reason that women or AFAB people on the spectrum in general don't get diagnosed until 10 years later on average. Like, it is a mess. So many of us get diagnosed in our 30s even. It's a whole thing. So for us, self-diagnosis isn't like a Tumblr, ooh, I want to be quirky thing. No. For the most part, we view it as, okay, well, a diagnosis costs thousands of dollars, or there's a wait list for years. And even if you are diagnosed, there's a chance that the doctor will literally tell you you're autistic, but we're not going to give you the diagnosis officially because it'll hold you back. That is not uncommon to hear from other people on the spectrum. This literally happens. I'm not making anything up. So if you put all these factors together, we think it's alright to self-diagnose while you're waiting for an official diagnosis, because that can take years. Like, that takes literally years. And thousands of dollars. If you don't have access to that, you shouldn't have to wait for a professional diagnosis to get the help you deserve. If you're autistic whether or not you have a diagnosis. So if the things that the autistic community uses to help themselves also helps you, then why not? It's all about like support items, care, that kind of thing. Because support items and coping skills should not be gatekept by any disorder. And if it helps you, use them, kind of thing. So the fact that they're attacking this person for being self-diagnosed is already an issue. Second of all, they say that they live in the UK, so it's literally free. There's still a wait list for over a year and a half, I think, in the UK for a diagnosis. And remember, the implicit biases towards cis straight white men being autistic still exist in the UK. So this individual could be acknowledged as being on the spectrum but not receive a formal diagnosis, right? Like, these are all problems that this person has to recognize. And so it doesn't matter if it's free. There's still going to be a shit ton of obstacles in between this person. Oh. Pardon the ambulance. So there's still going to be a crap ton of obstacles between this person and getting their diagnosis. So if they're self-diagnosed in the meantime, that's perfectly fine. Another thing that I heard a lot was, oh, it's so forced. Let's start with the first one, which is, oh, it's so forced. Depending on the individual, they have probably been forced to mask their autistic traits from the time that they were 2. For a lot of autistic people, when we start to relearn how to stim, which is a learning process because it's been like buried underneath us, you're gonna have to force it a little bit because a survival tactic was suppressing it. I don't think neurotypical people realize just how much autistic people have to go through in neurotypical society. I keep slouching. like, from a very young age, if I did this, which is really natural to me, if I did that, then I would get bullied intensely. So, as a survival skill, we learn to suppress it. So when you're overcoming that, you literally have to overcome what has become a survival instinct. So of course that person's gonna seem a bit forced. Another thing I saw a lot on that video was people saying, oh well, it's on beat, you clearly listen to the audio beforehand, it's fake. I feel like people are confusing autistic stimming with tics and tic disorders such as Tourette's syndrome. Tics are uncontrollable, like hand movements like that, or just vocal, any sort of like bodily movement that you cannot control, and they work like a sneeze. You can't make them happen, you can't control them. Well, I mean, you can, but it's like really, really bad for you. Like my little sister has ADHD and she has a tic where she goes, she can't stop it, right? That's what a tic is. Stimming is very, very different. I like to think of stimming as, let's compare it to laughter, right? So laughing is natural, but you can also make yourself do it, and you can also stop yourself from doing it. If you stop yourself from doing it for too long, then it's going to start feeling really unnatural to laugh again. That is what stimming is, right? Like, if you find something funny and you laugh to it, you can record yourself laughing to it, and the laugh won't be fake because it's still the same natural body reaction, right? That's what stimming is. Stimming isn't like a tic. Stimming is like laughter. So if there's an audio that makes you really excited and you stim to it, you can say, oh, I like how I stim to this, I'm gonna set up a camera and react to it again. It's the same thing, it's just a natural body reaction, but you can also suppress it because, again, survival mechanism, the same way you can suppress a laugh. You wouldn't look at someone who laughs at something after seeing it previously, or someone who suppresses a laugh during a try not to laugh challenge or something, you wouldn't say that their laughter is fake. So that's another thing that I've seen that really made me kind of upset with this. But granted, the people who are acting this way, I don't think that this video is going to reach them, because these are the people who are doing Fortnite dances. They are clearly of the less intelligent variety. Those are the kind of comments that this poor person got. And from my understanding, they talked to their therapist and has done a lot of research about autism and has come to the conclusion that they are most likely somewhere on the spectrum, and their therapist apparently agrees. I heard rumor has it that this person didn't want to be diagnosed, and that's why people are saying it's super fake. But then again, do they not want to be diagnosed because they couldn't be diagnosed, or do they not want to be diagnosed because it would still cost a lot of money and or be a lot of like mental effort and might not result in what they actually need? So that's like breaking down that video, that situation. The individual clearly wasn't in the wrong, right? And at the very least, it's not grounds for bullying them. But they were bullied so goddamn intensely that they privated their whole account and had to delete the video. I feel so bad for them. Because here's the thing, you should never, like, if someone feels neurodiverse and they're trying to figure that out, you should never, never, never bully them for that. It's absolutely insane to me. So, but then this sparked a whole thing where people started to accuse other people of being fake for no reason at all. I can't find a reason other than maybe they kind of look like this one person, and it's really just bringing out the prejudice in people, and it's horrifying. I've seen people who are like female and maybe have dyed hair, and all of the comments are fake, cap, this is way too forced. They say it's forced when it's anything bigger than like little hand movements. Like, I'm sorry that you're only like, that's another thing. They'll say, I know autistic people and they act nothing like this. How much of that is them, and how much of that is a coping mechanism / survival tactic that they don't even know that they have, right? Because here's the thing, when I found out I was autistic, and like started to like look into what that was, because my mom didn't tell me for a while, but when I started to look into that, this is like how I would stim, I would do little things like that. And then I became more comfortable with the idea of stimming and realizing this doesn't mean that I am lesser. This doesn't make me the R word. This doesn't mean that I am less valuable. I started to let myself do the biggins, you know? Well, I like that. Right? So, if you know someone who only does little stims, is that because they just don't feel comfortable around you in public? They don't feel comfortable around you. They don't feel comfortable with themselves. Because a lot of these people are young adults / teenagers commenting things like this. Like, oh, I'm autistic, I don't do that. Oh, I know people with autism who don't do that. How much of that is real? Kind of thing. Like, how much of that is just them being really uncomfortable in your presence? Because if I had a friend who bullied other autistic people online, they would have given me some clues beforehand as to their ableism. So I would not feel comfortable doing that around them. Of course not. And to all the other autistic people that said, oh, I'd never do that. First of all, it's all young men. They all fit the Uncle Tom Aspie protocol. Second of all, it's a spectrum for a reason. Have you noticed that a lot of the people who do these videos are AFAB / women on the spectrum? There is a reason for that. The way that AMAB and AFAB, assigned female at birth, assigned male at birth respectively, people experience autism is different. It works different. Men tend to be way more socially awkward. Well, okay. In general, men on the spectrum tend to be more impaired in social interaction abilities. Women are conditioned at an early age to learn that, so we are less likely to be as impacted by that. Just a broad thing. Women on the spectrum also tend to stim more and have greater sensory sensitivities. Again, this is mostly like broadly speaking kind of thing. This does not at all apply to every single person on the spectrum, but if we're talking about generalities, men experience autism differently from women. We both do still experience autism and can relate in that aspect, but there are a couple of differences, and that's why it's so hard to diagnose autism in women, because it's a neurological disorder and male and female brains are technically different and are wired differently. So a disorder that changes the wiring is going to look different with different kinds of brains. That's my oversimplified thing of it. So I see all of these dudes saying, oh, I'm autistic and I never act like that, so this entire group of people acting like this is fake. It's very annoying. It might be part theory of mind. You know, they might not be able to comprehend that other people have a different experience, which is part of their developmental disability, or they could just be a dick. We don't know. But I just find it really frustrating, because now I'm afraid to post videos of me stimming because I feel like people are going to call me fake. And it's just very annoying, because it's everyone who's calling an autistic woman or a fat person fake for their stimming or too forced clearly has no idea what stimming is. I see videos, I see all the comments are always, oh, this is forced, when it's someone like doing that. That's not forced. You're just neurotypical and can't conceive that we don't smile, we hand flap. That is your ignorance, buddy. You need to fix that. That's your problem. No, I'm just so frustrated, because the autistic community on TikTok has made such... Oh. Well, I don't want an ad. But made such big strides. It's really frustrating to see this happening. Like, and happening with people who know nothing about autism and assume that any woman who has dyed hair is automatically faking it. That's something I've seen a lot. It's mostly, like, if anyone ever says someone is fake for being, like, acting autistic, like they're supposed to, it'll be on something arbitrary, like they're well dressed, or they look normal, or something. And I know it's because they're intimidated by a lot of these autistic women's beauty, because if there's a woman who is not conventionally hyper attractive, the comments are, well, we could tell you're autistic. Because that's another thing, these assholes are associating autism with looking unattractive. I'm sorry, listen, I know I have some acne, and I'm not exactly a specimen of beauty standards, but I think I look pretty good, just in general. So, the fact that they are insulting these women by saying, oh, well, we could tell you we're autistic because they're overweight, or they are conventionally unattractive, according to the male standard. My lesbian ass just loves women. It's really infuriating, because as soon as, like, a woman is attractive, or, like, is attractive and has dyed hair, then it's, oh, you can't be autistic. But as soon as a woman is not conventionally attractive, it's, oh, well, we could tell. It's really frustrating, because these videos are overwhelmed with these kind of comments, and it's just very obvious that they are ignorant as all hell. I'm very upset with TikTok, honestly. Like, can you really deal with that? Seriously? What the hell is wrong with this app? I mean, I know it's because it's a bunch of teenage boys who, like, won't listen when you say that like they should care about people. They just don't understand that concept. So you can't really change it, but it's just incredibly frustrating as an autism advocate to see this sort of thing happening, because it's undoing so much hard work that the community's done. And with no grounds for them to do so either. Like, there's no reason for them to be acting like this other than these people don't fit their impression of what autism is, and therefore, if it's not what I think it is, it shouldn't be, and it just shouldn't work, which is not how the world works. It's so goddamn frustrating. And they'll never listen. Like, I saw this one comment thread. I saw a couple of comment threads, but one of them stuck out in particular because it was this person saying, oh, well, if their stims are that intense, they should have seen a doctor about it. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. Well, it just really highlights how uneducated people in general are about the spectrum, which, I mean, I get, but then to bully other people based off of your preconceived notions, that's BS. That's like going up to a black person and saying, who's like wearing like a wig, right? And you're like, you're not black, you're wearing a wig. All black women have incredibly long poofy hair that goes up to here. That is all that a black woman can be, and you're not it, so I'm gonna bully you off the platform. Not the best analogy, I admit, but you get my idea. You get my idea. Very bad. TikTok in general. Like, you got that one side of TikTok that I'm on, which is great, which is just a bunch of other autistic people, and admittedly some therapists, which has been kind of scary. But then you got, like, the other side that still uses the R word and says, haha, they're gonna call you gay. Okay. Second rant. The R word. How do they not understand that it's a slur? See, I feel like people aren't taught disabled history, so they never learn what the R word means. Right? The R word, started off as mental retardation, which was a diagnosis. Already we have a problem with that because by using the R word to describe things that you find undesirable, you're equating mentally disabled people with undesirable, which is wrong, because even the mentally disabled people are, human beings with value. But then there's the other aspect, the historical one. Okay. My thoughts are in place. Okay. So, do people not know what America and society in general has done to disabled people in the past 100 years? Do they actually not know? Back when the R word was used, anyone who was slightly disabled, if they were lucky, they were able to live at home, but unable to go outside because we literally had laws in place that if you were too deformed or unattractive or weird for people to look at, you couldn't leave your house and be in public. So if you're an autistic person who stimmed a bit, you could be legally required to stay inside your house, otherwise they would just put you in jail. They're called the ugly laws. That's the thing that happened. And that's if you were lucky. If you weren't, did you know that disabled lives were considered so unimportant that they were just used for experimentation because it was assumed that, well, if a disabled person dies, it's no big deal? If I existed, and this went on until the 60s, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. But if I lived in the 40s or 50s, I could legally have been taken away and experimented on. Literally had holes drilled in my brain, had part of my brain sawed off just to see what would happen. And it would be legal because I'm disabled. When the R word was commonly used, and the R word was a diagnosis for just anyone who was seen as being too weird for society to handle. Oh, and another thing that happened a lot, institutionalization. Did people just forget that happened? That it still fucking happens? Disabled people would be taken away from their families if they weren't killed right away as babies, because that is still a thing that happens today and happened a lot in the past and was legal in the past. Babies who would have been diagnosed with the R word were taken away to facilities where they were systematically abused, harassed, used for slave labor. All legally, because they're the R word, they don't matter. That's the history of this goddamn word. And this isn't even people who were vegetables. People always assume that, it's just the vegetables that went through that. No, there are survivor testimonies from the 70s from people who are in institutions who are raped and abused and slept on the floor and were given one meal a day because they were seen as less than animals. This happened recently. Did you know that we did not get our civil rights in 1967? We got them in 1990, 30 years ago, and we didn't even get all of our civil rights. We still don't have them all. The Americans with Disabilities Act basically just means that everyone has access to public places. Basically just means, okay, well, if you're disabled, you should have access to everywhere. So, wheelchair ramps and reasonable accommodations in the workplace. That's it. It doesn't say anything about criminalizing discrimination against disabled people during, employment. Disabled people still have to choose between getting married and losing their disability benefits. Disabled people still, can legally be paid cents an hour. We are still missing a lot of our basic civil rights, and these people still want to call us the R word, which is a word that originates from the worst time in disabled history. You want to know where Hitler got his idea for genetic purity and keeping track of that? The American eugenics movement, which started in the early 1900s, as a way to systematically eliminate all disabled people from society because we couldn't cooperate with what capitalism demanded and were thus seen as less important than everyone else. Hitler literally gave kudos to America. Speaking of Hitler, guess who he tested out his gas chambers on before he killed all the Jews? You guessed right, he stole a bunch of disabled people and figured that, well, no one cares about them anyway, and then used them to determine how optimal his gas chambers were. You know, just small little things. Like, the disabled community has gone through so much fucking shit, especially when we were called the R word. It is a word with a horrible, horrible history. To the point where when President Obama literally changed the diagnosis to intellectually disabled, that he said that words impact how we treat people. Hopefully this will change it, because that word is rooted in such deep discrimination and hatred for disabled people. And then they still say, oh, it's just a word, you're being a snowflake, it's no big deal. What is wrong with people? I literally once, like, there was like a video where someone like called themselves the R word. There was a comment saying, hey, how about we don't use slurs against disabled people? And another fine individual commented, well, disabled people aren't oppressed. So I gave him a list of 10 things to Google. This man said, well, if it's the mentally disabled, then those numbers make sense. I literally included how disabled people are murdered by their parents and given like 4 years in jail because we are inherently seen as not as bad as killing your typical child. And this man says that makes sense. This is how rampant ableism is in our society. We are just seen as lesser. Did you know that if there is a fire drill or a school shooter drill, a lot of places just leave behind disabled people? I mean, you can really tell how much like we are not mattered by the fact that everyone during this pandemic said, oh, well, it's fine if people with pre-existing conditions die. Oh, well, the only people who are going to die are those with pre-existing conditions. It doesn't matter. Since when did my life not fucking matter because I was already sick? Excuse me? Like, I have friends with asthma, right? What do you mean it's only people with asthma and pre-existing conditions? Excuse me? Like, listen, I would not die if I contracted COVID, but I would very likely suffer permanent damage. I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, connective tissue disorder, if you don't know. Basically, the sticky stuff that holds my body together is much weaker than other people's. Like, if other people's is super glue, mine is like Scotch tape. It works, but not very well. So as a result, a bunch of stuff in my body's messed up, particularly my joints and skin elasticity. So, hang on. Oh, I have to move over here. Like, very stretchy. And then just, like, ignore my pits, I need to shave. Oh no, body hair. But I am very bendy. But another thing that happens with this, in between your sternum and your rib cage is technically a joint. For me, that joint gets inflamed if I like rest my phone on it, and then I like can't breathe very good for 2 weeks. I have like a chronic inflamed chest wall because like that joint is so weak for me. If I got COVID, which is an upper respiratory infection, it would suck. I probably wouldn't die, but it would suck. I think I just like went on a side tangent. But yeah, so like it would suck, and then when I hear people saying that, oh well, it's only people with pre-existing conditions, basically it's only the disabled. Like, what do you mean only? We still fucking matter. Einstein was autistic, excuse me? excuse me, you're really gonna say that we don't matter? The, like, the smartest person in physics, like, of our time, Stephen Hawking? I'm pretty sure it's Stephen Hawking, the dude in the wheel, the guy who's like, I don't know what he has, but he, like, is in a wheelchair and, like, uses technology to, like, speak. But y'all know who I'm talking about. That man's disabled. You gonna tell me that if he died, it would be fine because, oh, well, he only already had a pre-existing condition. Boy. And TikTok is just seeing the utter accumulation of, like, just how prevalent ableism is in our society, and it's really, really fucking sad. Like, I'm very glad I'm on, like, the good side of TikTok where it's not bad, but it's just, all of this is just accumulating, you know? Like, we try and tell them the history of the R word, we try and, like, explain what stimming is to them, and that one person was right to be self-diagnosed, and they just don't listen, because they don't care. They just want to have an easy target to bully. That's what these assholes want. That's the conclusion I've determined is most sensible. That they just want to have a reason to bully people. Because they have nothing better to do with their miserable lives. I am frustrated. I mean, hey, though, at the very least, we can always consider that there's tons of people on TikTok who are, like, helping spread awareness of the condition and, like, raising acceptance. I mean, some of y'all would include me in that, but I mean, I'm still having a hard time considering that I even have a following, so I'll worry about that later. Alright, I just wanted to rant about that and how dumb it is, particularly how that one person was in the right and this whole trend is horrific, and also, like, stop using the R word, you knuckleheads. So I'm gonna stop before I start on a whole nother tangent and this whole talk gets really hard to listen to. Indeed. Anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed that. I keep getting a lot of comments saying that my voice is really relaxing and they want to hear just more of it in general. So we'll see if y'all like this. Alright, y'all. Have a lovely day and I'll see ya, I don't know, later.